Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. This is a Revell 1/72 scale T34 85, and this is going to form the next part of our Belly Tiger or White Tiger build. So, let's get on with it. So yes, this is one of the T34s that we're going to be using in our little diorama that we're going to make. So yeah, I did buy this one. I actually have a couple of T34s that we'll see a bit later on, but this is the one that we're going to use for the protagonist's vehicle, if you like. So let's get this out of the box and have a look at it. If you didn't watch the first part, by the way, you may be wondering what on earth I'm doing, but there is method to my madness. Basically what we're doing is we're recreating one of the scenes from the 2012 Russian war film, White Tiger. So we built the Tiger in the last video, and now we're moving on to the T34s. So let's see what we have here. We'll start with the decals because I've got them in my hand. We are not going to use these because as you can see here in one of the scenes from the shots from the film, the T34-85 does not have these kind of unit markings, so we won't be using these, so we'll put those to one side. The idea of the 85 in the film is that it has been modified. As they say, it's been up-armoured and had a stronger motor or more powerful engine put in it. I suppose that's basically that way they can they could keep the exterior looking the same without and they just kind of, you know, cuffed it a bit, but that's fine. Safety advice, yeah, okay. Now let's have a look at the destructions. Ooh, colour, nice one, Revell, well done. Big thing on how to get bits off and all the rest of it. It's quite useful for if you've never done it before. Oh no, I see they've done here the same as Airfix did with the Tiger. They've actually numbered all the parts. They've showed you where all the bits are on the frames. I like that. This is something they seem to have started doing recently, and I do like that. Now, this is quite a complex kit for a 1/72 scale. I mean, as we see, if we go back to the box, we see this is level 4, so this is one of their more complicated kits. Now, it says copyright 2016 on the box, so it's, yeah, it's not old, it's not new, it should be all right. Yeah, the instructions seem quite detailed, quite easy to read. We are going to make a few changes in this because this, the tank in the film has a few bits that are not on this, or you know, different to this model, but we'll worry about it as we get to it. The main thing is it's things like these auxiliary tanks on the sides. It doesn't have those, but anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So that's all fine. Let's put those to one side for a minute and let us have a look at the kit itself. Now, now this is interesting. You know, I usually rant about plastic bags. This one has De Grüne Punkt, the green spot. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer, or it can be, because this does not mean that this bag is recyclable. What this symbol means is that the company who made this has in some way invested in renewable technology, but that does not mean that this is recyclable, which is a bit sneaky. I'm not sure I like that, but anyway, that's beside the point. Let's get it out of the bag and have a look. Now, I wonder if I can just pull this open. Oh, I can. Look at that. Kind of. Right, here we go. Oh, come on, out. Now, let's have a look at this little beast. Well, I have to say, at first glance, it doesn't look too bad. There's quite a lot of detail on here, which is nice. But then you'd kind of expect that, because this is, as I say, this is one of their level 4 kits, so this is like one of the upmarket ones. Now, here are the tracks. Got the famous waffle tracks. We will be using these tracks on this vehicle, but I have actually, where did I put them? Oh, here they are. I have actually 3D printed some track sections, and you'll see why in a little bit. But yeah, so that's fine. Now, one of the nice things about this, or not, as the case may be, depending on your opinion, this has all individual road wheels. And it's got all the handles and everything. And I like that. I do like that. The one thing we might have to change or figure out is, I think there's only one light, and the one in the film has 2. So, yeah. I might have to see if I can figure out something else for that. Okay, right. I think we'll be alright with that. Alright, so the directions call for the wheels to be put together and mounted onto the sides of the hull first, which we're not going to do, because we need to paint the wheels first. We also need to paint the hull before we put the wheels on. But what I am going to do is I'm going to get all the wheels separated, and then I'm going to paint them separately, and then we'll start assembling the hull. I'm going to show you a little trick for painting wheels, which I've showed you before, but if you've not watched, you might not have seen it. So let me get all these mounted up and primed, and then we'll go on from there. Right, well, after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, all of the wheels are now cleaned and tidied up and everything else. There were some nasty little mould lines on some of them that I had to get rid of, so not a lot, but just enough to be annoying. So I got rid of all of them. Now, what I'm going to do next is start putting the hull together, because most of this can be assembled and painted as one monolithic piece. So that'll be the next step. It's going to be just a question of getting all this put together. Because like I say, we're not doing any modifications to this one. I mean, there's a couple of bits that we're going to leave off, but we're not adding any more bits to it, if that makes sense. So we'll start putting this hull together, and then we can prime everything at the same time. I was just about to say, where's the driver's hatch, but it's already part of the hull. Just why we don't want that open, isn't it? Okay, let me start putting all this together, and then we can see where we can go from there. Now, there's a little tab on each side there that these, I'm assuming, fit into like that, yeah. Glue would be useful at this point. Right, progress has happened. So I probably showed you a little montage there. So the hull is pretty much done. The turret is basically done. The the gun moves. The gun elevates to an extraordinary level. I'm sure they don't actually go up that high in real life. Anyway, I did drill out the end of the barrel because it was just flat and it looked weird. I did the same thing on the exhausts because they were just flat and they looked weird. I have moved some things around a little bit. So you'll notice I have not put the tanks on, and that is because in the originals, when you first see this tank, it has the tanks on it, and then when you see it in the scene we're recreating, it doesn't. So I've left them off. I put the brackets on, but left the tanks off. I have not put, there are 3 of these little stowage bins that are on this side, which I've left off because the tank in the film doesn't have them, and instead it has a log, which I'm going to make out of this, which is a piece of a bamboo skewer. So that's going to go over here somehow, like that. But I'm not going to put that on yet because obviously that's got to be a different colour to the rest of it. Now, the one small thing that I'm doing at the moment is the tow rope on this model goes on this side, and you can see there's a hole there where one end goes and the other end hooks over that little pin there. But in the film, the tow rope is on this side and it's hooked over a stowage bin on here. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I've done, and I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but we'll give it a go. I have been, oh, sorry if that was loud, I just punched the microphone. I have just been warming up the tow rope in some hot water. And what I want to try and do, if I can, I want to bend it, and I don't know if this is going to work or not because I don't want to break it, because I want to basically bend it over the top of this stowage bin. I think that will probably do actually for that. And then so the other side, so it's been sitting in some hot water to make it a bit more flexible, although it doesn't seem to be flexing that much. And then what, because the trouble is it's very difficult to see where this end of it goes, because it goes down and then it kind of curves around the front. I think it might even be hooked onto that, but I'm not sure, because the trouble is the scene in question, there's so much foliage on the tank you can't really see any details. But that kind of goes like that. So this will go through here and then over the top of that. Where are my tweezers? There they are. I need to bend that down a bit more so that it goes underneath that handle, the grab rail. Alright, I'll warm this up a bit more and we'll shape it a bit more, and then I'll show you an update. Right, with a combination of hot water and hot air, I think I've managed to do it. I also managed to break the end off, but that's alright, we'll glue that back on, that'll be alright. So, it's quite handy actually that this end is actually a separate piece, because it would be really difficult to get this through here otherwise. But I wanted to get these other bits on before I put the rope on, so that I knew the rope would go in the right place, sort of thing, if that makes sense. So, let's see if we can get this in here. I think we're going to have to glue one in then the other, but it's going to go in something like that. So, alright, there we go, I think that will do. So I think we are probably ready to start putting some paint on this thing. Yeah, yep, let's start painting this. Right, so now the most awkward bit. Painting all the wheels. So this is never fun, but I'll show you a quick and easy way to do it. So first things first, you take your XF85 rubber black and you paint the tyre. Or you can just paint the whole wheel basically. But make sure you get all of the tyre covered. Front and back. Oh, I've got the camera around backwards for some reason. I can't see what I'm doing. Right. Like that, you see. So let me just do all the rest of the wheels and I'll show you the rest of it. But basically, after this, we're going to put the colour coat on. Right, so once you've painted the black, the next trick is this. Now this is a circle template. It's basically for drawing. It's in millimetres. And it goes from 1 millimetre up to, I think it's 36 millimetres. Yeah, 36 millimetres. In half mil stages up to 12 mil, and then it's 1 mil from each there. But here's the clever bit. Let me show you. So, we take one of our wheels. I'll just pop it off the cocktail stick for a minute. What we do is we find the hole on here that lines up with the size of the wheel, not the tyre, the wheel, which I know in this case is 9.5 millimetres because I already checked. Now what we do is we take our airbrush, which is now filled with dark green 2 XF81, basically because I don't have any bronze green. And what we do is like that. And now when I pop this off of here and promptly drop it, you'll see that that, if I get my fat fingers out of the way, is one perfectly painted wheel. You see? And obviously we can do the back side as well. So that is a very, very simple way of painting wheels quickly without having to mask anything or muck about. So if you don't have one of these circle templates, I strongly advise getting you one. I'll put a link in the description to where you can get one. Yes, so I'll get on and do the rest of these wheels and then we'll go on from there. Right, so the wheels are done. While they're waiting for them to dry, I might as well do the rest of it because it's all the same green. So yes, I'm using this RAF Dark Green 2 XF81 because, as I said, I don't have any, I don't have any bronze green. So anyway, this is close enough. Right, there we go. That's all the green bits done. So we'll let all that dry and then we'll go on from there. Right, now we've got the base coat done. We're going to do a bit of highlighting with our old friend XF55 Deck Tan. Right, now that's dry, we'll go over it again with a very heavily thinned down coat of our XF81 again. Now you'll notice that it looks like all of those highlights have just vanished. But as this dries, the highlights will start to show through again, so it might need a couple of coats. But just keep working at it until you've got the look that you want. Just remember to let it dry so you can check what it's finally going to look like. Right, while that's the hull is drying, we're going to turn our attention to the tracks. I'm going to start, they've been primed, and I'm going to give them a coat of this XF84 Dark Iron. Now you might notice I've left these bits on the frames, and that's basically because trying to hold these little tiny individual track links is a nightmare. So I'll paint them on the frames, and then once I've got them on the vehicle, I'll touch up any bits that need going over. And now we're going to give these a little dry brush with some Citadel chainmail, which I think is now called Bolter or something like that. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's next. Oh, my daughter's just turned up. Say hello, Katie.
Hello, Katie.
What are you after?
Wood.
Another bit?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've got a bit to hand.
You're no good.
Shush you.
What are you doing?
I'm dry brushing. You remember I tried to teach you to dry brush once?
Yeah.
Didn't go well, did it? No. I think the reason was, what is it? The same as always, it's impatient, I believe, was the... How big a bit of wood do you want?
Same size as the other bits of wood.
Well, give me a minute and I'll see if I can find a bit. I don't know why I'm spending so much time on these tracks, because these are a bit at the bottom anyway, you can't see them. Still.
Exactly, so you're sitting there spending hours dry brushing them for no reason.
Well, it's not for no reason. I know they're there. And besides, some of these bits go on the top and some of them go on the bottom. So if you do them all to the same standard, then it doesn't matter which one you put where, does it?
No. Doesn't, does it? But it takes a lot less time just to do the ones that are actually going to be visible.
Yeah, but a lot of them are going to be visible. Because it's like these bits here go at the front and back, so they will be visible.
Wow. It's been a minute.
Don't be impatient.
But
And or impertinent. By the way, apparently everybody was most impressed with our discussion on Marmite the other day. I think there are a couple of suggestions that we should have a podcast.
Eh?
A podcast. It's where you just sit and talk about things.
Oh.
There you go, put a comment if you think we should do a podcast. We probably won't, but we might. You could tell them about all the goings on at school and all that, and all the weirdness that you seem to attract.
I don't attract weirdness.
I'm fairly sure you do. Well, you're always telling me all these weird and wonderful things that happen at school. And people are interested, inquiring minds and all that.
Well, like at the time my class basically didn't listen to my RS teacher to the point that I actually made her cry.
Well, that's just mean. Shouldn't do that.
I didn't do that. Everyone was just talking. I was sitting there nice and quiet, you see.
Well,
I'm a good student.
well, to be fair, you do generally get good reports from school, so...
Yeah.
Although they do say you need to engage a bit more in class.
No.
No?
No. I refuse.
Your last report was quite good. I was quite impressed with that.
Anyway, shouldn't be talking about my report. That's personal information.
Well, it isn't, because all I've said is your report. It's not like I've said anything identifiable, is it?
Yes, it is.
It's not like I've given out your bank details or anything.
I don't have bank details.
Well, you do, but...
Do I?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you've got bank accounts.
Huh. Don't say no every day.
Well, there you go. It's just you don't have any access to them.
Me.
Well, they're like savings accounts and things that your mother and I set up for you when you were born. And at some point in the dim and distant future, you may well be given access to them.
Ooh. Can I buy a chicken?
No,
Oh, why not?
because I haven't got anywhere to put a chicken.
Oh. Can I buy a house and then can I buy a chicken?
Good luck with that.
Why can't we have chickens?
There's certainly not enough in there to buy a house. I'll tell you that right now.
What about a small flat?
Well, yeah, but how are you going to keep a chicken in a flat? It just poop everywhere.
Train
Although I
to-
suppose you could have a house chicken. You've got a bird anyway.
Yeah, but he bites.
Well, it's not my fault he doesn't like you.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I think he sees you as competition. Competition for my affections. He thinks that we're all his flock. And I'm the alpha, or whatever, the flock leader.
The flock leader.
And he sees himself as, I think, number 2. And so I think he thinks it's his job to keep you in your place.
Thanks.
Just saying. Well, I don't know. I don't know what goes on in his head. He's an idiot.
Nothing.
Right. I think that'll do for those.
Ooh. They look exactly the same as they did before.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Don't be obnoxious, child.
No.
They look highlighted.
Wow.
And once they're put together...
Isn't that special?
Stop being a little brat. Or I'll sell all your toys. Right, so there we go. That's those dry brush. We'll do a bit more with these in a minute, but I need to go and find her a bit of wood. So
Yes.
back in a sec. Right, so the tracks are drying. I've just given the turret a quick lick over with some X22 clear. Because I want to put a couple of decals on it. The only markings on this tank are a couple of red stars. Now, this model didn't come with red stars, but fortunately, I do have some. These ones here. Now, these ones, you will note, are not from a tank, they're from an aircraft. They're from the Hobby Boss HE162 Salamander. Now, you may remember we built a couple of these a while back. Long-time viewers will remember. Those were ones that I used for the TIE fighters when I was doing a little like World War II / Star Wars crossover. So this does have some red stars, and I think these ones here will do. The one small problem, they're a little bit too big, and the ones on the tank in the film have a white border, which these don't have, but quite frankly, they'll do for what we're doing. So I'm going to pop those on. So I've got my little air wick thingy over there, burning up the, heating up some water. And we will pop these on the sides of the turret. And they should do us just fine. One thing I like about this Hobby Boss ones actually is the tissue paper they put over it, they've actually taped it in place, which is a nice touch, because these always fall off. It's almost like, what, I don't know why they bother putting them on, but they've taped these on, which is nice. Anyway, let's get these on. So some tweezers would be nice. Tweezers. There's some tweezers, that'll do. Right, so we'll just pop this in the water for a second. And I've got me Mr. Mark setter. Now, where does it go exactly? Between those two protuberances. About there. Right. Let's see how this works. Oh. Oh, I should have put my glasses on really. Is that straight? I think that needs to go back a bit actually. Where's... Out there. Right, let's get that stuck down. There we go, that looks alright. So I'll stick the one on the other side, give it another quick flick over a varnish, and then we'll go on from there. Right, and while that's all drying, we can start putting all these wheels together. So I'm not going to do all of these on camera, but it's just I'll just do a couple just to give you an idea. Oh, where are my glasses? Right. Right, now these have a little locating pin that you have to get in, which is exciting. Like that. And then that goes on the front. Oh, he says, as it doesn't. That goes on the front. Alright, let's try and make sure that's somewhere near straight. Like that. Road wheels. Oh. That's that. The trouble is, as you're putting them together, it's next to impossible to see where the locating pins are. So you have to kind of just like fumble around to find them, which is all kinds of exciting. Right, that looks straight. So there we go. So I'll get on and do the rest of these, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Right, a little update. Things are not going exactly swimmingly at the moment. I'm trying to put the tracks on. I started putting the tracks on, and I have come across a bit of an issue. And the issue is this. With the tracks, the ones that come with the kit, you get these long pieces, then you get these links of 4, and then you get a bunch of individual links like this one here. Hopefully you can see that all right. And the idea is, and I've already done it on the top here, you basically, so this top piece is one of these long pieces, and then one of the 4 links at either end to lengthen it. That's fine. That's all well and good. So let's just drop that back in there. Now, the problem that we have is this bit here. I'm just trying to get this in a position where you can actually see it. Let's get all these out of the way for a second. If I pop that where it's supposed to go, give or take. Oh. He says. Oh, it's easy if I do it upside down actually. Let's just turn this up the other way. So, let's get that out of the way for a minute. There we go, that's better. Now, pop that on there. And the problem we have is this, to me, looks too short. Because when you go to try and put one of these 4 links on, and the idea is now this piece basically bridges that gap. But it doesn't fit very well, you see. And it's the same at the front. And you can see there, in order to try and get that to fit, I've had to move it back slightly, which means it's now too short at the front. So, yeah, I genuinely cannot see these things fitting. And also, I don't like the look of them. They look pretty good, but they're not great. So what I've decided to do is use some of the track links that I printed. And this is it's going to be a nightmare. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically do the following. So I'm going to have the long section on the bottom, the long section on the extended section on the top, and then I'm going to fill in the rest, especially at the front, with these printed links. And hopefully that will work. Which I think is going to be a better idea anyway, because it's like, for example, if you look at this, so that's one of our 4 links. If I compare that to, let's get these ones in here, to this, I think you'll agree that looks a lot better than that. Even to the extent that the track guides are hollow on these 3D printed ones, which is what they should be. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be an absolute bugger of a thing to do, if you'll pardon the expression. But I think it's going to give a better result. So I'm going to certainly try and do the front of each track. The back I might just do with the kit pieces. But what I need to do is basically extend this bottom section. I'm going to put one of the kit links on each one, and I'm going to put another one on the top one on each end to make them longer, and then try and fill in the gaps with these. I think I'm probably going to do this either with the overhead camera or off camera, because it's going to be a nightmare. There's going to be a lot of swearing and it's not going to be fun, but I think it's the best way to go. If anyone's built one of these things, by the way, how did you get the tracks on? Because I mean, maybe it'll all fit, I don't know, but it just, to me, it just looks like it won't. Also worth mentioning that I see now why on the plans they said put the tracks on before you put the side plates on the hull. It would certainly be much, much easier. But the problem with that is I don't think you could assemble the hull and paint it with these off. I mean, you could, but it'd be very awkward. If I ever built another one of these, I might try doing it that way, because I think that would make more sense in a way. But anyway, that's beside the point. This is where we are now, and this is how we're going to try and solve this. So I am now going to spend an inordinate amount of time finishing up, cleaning up all these parts. I've got another load on the printer, will just come off the printer, they're currently curing, and we're going to see how this works. So I will come back and update you accordingly. Yay. Why do I do this? Oh, well, that has taken a couple of hours, mainly cleaning parts and things, but I think that looks pretty good. There's a a bit of a mismatch there, but it actually fits together right. It's just it's like 0.5 millimeter too short, but I'm not worried about that. It looks fine. But yeah, I think that looks way better than the I mean, well, you can see the difference there between the kit tracks and the 3D printed ones. These just look so much better. So yeah, very happy with that. So I shall do the other side, and then we'll go on from there. It's actually come out way better than I thought it was going to. I'm very happy. Right, it is the next day. I have tidied up a bit because it was an absolute bomb site on this desk. But so once again, here's our tracks all done, and I think they look very good. So the next thing, I took the opportunity last night before I went in, seeing as I was very much burning the midnight oil. I think it took about 4 hours to do those tracks in total, and I think I finished at about 2 o'clock in the morning. So before I went in, I quickly threw some panel line, dark brown and black, in various places on this, just to so that it could be drying overnight, which it has. And so I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So I've got a little bit of white spirit here in this little pot, and I shall use a brush or two. So I'm going to start off these fan brushes. This came from the works. It was part of a set, and they're very good for this kind of thing. Let me show you. So basically what you do is just get the brush wet, get as much, nearly all of the thinner off. You only want it just damp, and then just very lightly go over it like this, and it create some great streaks. I don't want to go mad with this because it's going to get a lot of dust and things on it, which is what I'm more interested in. But just to get the worst of this off and sort of get it where we want it. But you see how that's just streaking the panel line colour. And obviously you can use different brushes, you don't just use this one. I mean, it's like you can take, see, this is one of those Airfix brushes, and you can do the same thing. So if you want a little bit more kind of like delicate control, then to sort of clean up any excess, you can do it like that, you see. And again, if you want little streaks, sort of around these handles and things, and do it like that. So I'll clean up the rest of this, then I'm going to hit it with a coat of matte lacquer, and then we can do some weathering. Right, so that varnish is dried now, or lacquer, and I'm going to do the tracks. So I've made up an oil wash with the same yellow ochre Crawford black oil paint we used on the Tiger, because obviously we want it to look the same, although this is quite a thin wash because I don't want these tracks, they're more dusty than dirty, if that makes sense. So let's see how this goes on. Yeah, that's looking good. I'm going to go over basically the whole sort of running gear, wheels, tracks, everything. If I get a bit on the side skirts and that, it doesn't matter. As I say, I want it quite thin, because I mean, if there's a few blobs, it doesn't matter, but I want to try and focus more on making it look dusty than dirty. And we'll put some pigment on it afterwards, but I want to get most of this off first. So basically put it on, let it dry, set up for a bit, and then take a lot of it off. See that top track flexing? It's because it's only attached at the front and the back. Right, I think that will do us. So I'll dry this off with a hairdryer a bit, just to get rid of the worst of it, and then we'll clean it up a bit, and then we'll put some pigment on it. Right, so I've just dried that off a little bit. So I don't want it bone dry because I want something for the pigment to stick to. So what I've got here is some pigment that I made by grinding up some pastels. And what we're going to do is put some of this on to give us a bit of dirt. Well, as I say, more dust. So this is why I'm using this stuff rather than the pigment I used last time, because this is a lot finer. can see there how that's sticking, but it's still letting the detail of the track show through. Right, let's see if we can get some on the wheels as well. This is going to clump a lot on the brush because obviously the stuff's still wet, so the this white spirit will soak into the brush a little bit, but that's all right. As you can see, this is making it look more dusty than dirty. And what we'll do is we'll put this on, and then once it's nicely coated, we'll brush quite a lot of this off. Yeah, like that, you see. Just to give us a nice dusty look, let's put a bit on the front of that. We are going to go over the rest of it, the tank with it afterwards, but I want to get these tracks done first. Right. Now we can use the other end of the brush and just remove it in strategic places. Like that, you see. Because it's like we don't really want it on the surface of the road wheels, because obviously that would, you know, it would just come off as the track's going around. So there we go. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? So I will do the other side of this, and then I will apply a relatively liberal coating to the rest of it, and we'll be not far from being finished. After that, we need to apply some foliage. That's going to be fun. Right, so that's all dry now, and we're ready to move on. So I'm just going to put that to one side for 1 second, because the next thing we've got to do, and possibly one of the last things we need to do, is apply some foliage. If you remember, the one in the film has quite a lot of pine branches and other branches thrown over it. I don't have any pine branches of that scale, but what I do have is this. Now, what is this, I hear you cry? This is moss. I think it's Spanish moss, I think. Also, I think sometimes called sphagnum moss, is it? Or sphagnum moss, something like that. But you buy it for pet bedding, for vivariums and things like that. And it's basically, you get a big bag of wet moss, this stuff. And what I did was I bought a bag of it, took it home, laid it out on some newspaper, and just left it in the airing cupboard to dry out for a few days. And I ended up, I've got a huge, like, massive tub of this. So it's also quite blowy. So yeah, this is what it looks like when it dries out. It is quite crumbly, but I think it will do for our purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this to bits and make some suitable sized pieces. It is quite crumbly because obviously when it dries out it starts to fall to bits, but it's going to be alright for what we're doing. As long as you leave it alone, it's fine. So once it's on the model, it'll be alright. So I'm just going to separate this out a little bit. And so you can just take these bits and just break them up to get, you know, something more suitable. Like this is a good bit here, this nice long stringy bit. So we'll break that up into a few pieces. You can also use scissors and just basically snip it up like that. And there's some slightly thicker bits. That's a nice bit. You don't want them too big because obviously the scale of the tank, so like this bit here might be a bit too big actually. We'll get rid of that bit. These little stringy bits here will be nice. Right, that'll probably do us actually. And what we're going to do now is paint these to make them look a bit more, you know, like branches. And for that, I'm going to use this. This is a Tamiya TS28 Olive Drab 2 that I just happen to have. But it's the nice thing with these Tamiya ones is they're very, very fine spray. I mean, you could quite possibly get away with just using, you know, our old favourite, the high coat, but I don't have any the right colour, so we'll use this instead, and this will be sufficient. So what I'll do is I'll get these all sprayed up and then we'll see what they look like and then start putting them on the tank. Right, so let's start putting some of this on. Now you'll notice there's another little bit's appeared here. This is a log that I made. It's basically just a piece of a bamboo barbecue skewer that I cut down and I stained with some ink and a bit of paint. So, and I'm going to stick all this on with Mod Podge matte. So we'll stick some on this bit of card here. That's way too much. Never mind. Right, now, so the first thing we need to do is get this log stuck on. So I'll just lift that off for a second. Trying not to poke the camera with the brush would probably help. Right, now pop this back on. Like that. Now, you see I've already placed a couple of pieces. I haven't stuck them on yet, I just wanted to see how they would work. And I think they're going to be right there. So I'll take this back off. This will fall to bits a bit because it's basically dried out, but once it's on it'll be fine. And I say you don't need a huge amount of glue, you just need enough to hold it in place. Underneath that machine gun, he says, as it doesn't go under the machine gun. That's it. Right, let's turn this around. Oh, get off. That'll do for that bit. It's kind of funny to do all this and then cover most of it up with big lumps of moss. But, you know, that's what we do. Okay, that'll do for that. Kind of funny doing this because there's quite a lot of continuity issues in this film, and quite often you'll see this tank from one shot to the next, and indeed all the tanks, and they look different. Yeah, it's like there's one shot of this tank all in the same scene, and it has barely any foliage on this side, and then the next shot it drives up and stops and it's absolutely covered, and it's just like, okay. got a bit carried away there, did we, folks? But still, it's still a very good film. Well worth the watch. This brush that I'm using, you may have seen me use similar brushes for oil paints and stuff like that. This came off of Wish, actually. Actually, if there's anybody who speaks, I'm assuming it's Chinese, but anybody who speaks Chinese or reads Chinese, what does that say? Anyway, but I bought a bag of 10 of those brushes for £1 with free delivery off of Wish, and they're great for stuff like this. When you just want something to, you know, blob something on somewhere, they work great. There we go. Right, that's right there. And what we'll do now is we will leave this to dry, and then I think we can wrap this up. And here is our finished article. This is a nice little kit, actually. I was a little bit disappointed with the tracks. Maybe they would have fit if I'd have tried, but I think it looks better with the 3D printed tracks anyway. But yeah, it's a very, very detailed little kit considering the scale. And it was quite a lot of fun to build. It went together pretty well. Yeah, I might have another go at one of them one day. So yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, our next foray into our Belly Tiger build, our white tiger. And in the next video we will be, surprise surprise, building another T34, but with a difference, so stay tuned for that. I'd like to take a moment and thank my top tier patrons, Howard, Amy and the anonymous Tosh, for their continued support. Thank you guys, it's very much appreciated, as indeed with all of my patrons. And if you want to come and join us on Patreon, you are more than welcome, or come and join us in the staff canteen on Facebook. So yeah, hopefully you're enjoying this little series, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers, bye.